What is damp in Chinese medicine? This is the thing that people remember all the time. Either they've had a practitioner talk to them about them having damp, or they're really concerned that they have damp and they want to do something about it. So essentially, damp is fluids in the body have become swampy or murky. How does that happen? Well, there's quite a lot of things that play into why damp would be created in the body. The first thing that you want to think about is, what are you eating? Are you eating foods that produce damp? Are you eating a lot of raw or cold foods? Because these can have an influence on creating damp. We also want to look at the environment that people are in. Are you in a damp place? Do you spend a lot of time in water? Or is your house cold? Is there rising damp in your house? Do you go swimming and then leave wet clothes on your body? So what you put into your body and the environment that you're sitting in will also affect how damp is created. The other thing that's a little bit trickier is how your mental activity can affect damp being created in the body. And this one's a little bit more challenging to deal with. So we're just going to park that idea for a moment. And I'm going to go back and talk to you a little bit more about the process of how damp might be created in the body in the first place, because it's kind of a new concept for a lot of people. The way that you might equate this in a Western framework would be to think about the body as creating excess mucus, or the body is creating excess phlegm. And if too much of that is created in the body, you can feel swampy, you can feel cloudy in your head, you can feel heavy in your limbs. You might also have excess mucus or phlegm turning up, like constantly needing to clear your throat. There might be chronic sinusitis. You might even have mucus turning up in your bowel movements. In Chinese medicine, we look at the organ of the spleen as being the primary organ that facilitates digestion, as well as the stomach. They are a pair. And the spleen's main job, according to our texts, is to, one, extract qi from what you eat, which gives you your energy for the day, but also to make sure that fluids get cleaned properly, which means any fluid that's considered murky or dirty or no longer useful is slowly excreted out of the body, and fluids that are valuable will be sent up in the body. And if the spleen gets really tired or overwhelmed, or it's just not able to function properly, then those clean and dirty fluids become mixed, and that's what we call damp. And so what kinds of things could affect the spleen not being able to function properly? Well, one is overloading the spleen with too much raw and cold food, particularly if you live in a cold place. And this can be tricky for people because we might just think that a raw salad is full of nutrients and is really, really healthy. But if you put a whole bunch of cold raw foods in the body needs a certain amount of digestive fire to cook that food in the first place. So we would always recommend that people try and eat food that's either been lightly steamed or cooked first, so you're really aiding that digestive process. Other things that can affect the spleen is swamping it with too much fluid. And this is where my sporty mates often have a challenging problem with this next thing, and that is something like dumping a great big smoothie into your body the first thing in the morning, especially if it's got ice in it, or frozen berries, or frozen banana, or frozen greens. That's just so much liquid and so much cold to pour into the body. Other things that might produce damp could be excess dairy in the diet or excess refined sugar. Think things like ice cream or even vegan varieties of ice cream. And all of those things can really affect the spleen. One thing that you can look out for is how loose are your bowel movements? And that's not always a great conversation to want to have with people, but it's going to give you a really good report card on your digestive system. So if you're having a morning smoothie and it feels great for you and it's really healthy, just kind of start to monitor the state of your bowel movements. If they're really loose and they're falling out of the body, even if there's if there's undigested food in the stools, then that is an indicator that your digestive system is overloaded, or there's too much cold in the body and you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need from your food. The other thing to look out for is if actually there's mucus in the stools as well. And so therefore, what kind of foods would you be trying to include in your diet if you're clearing up damp? Well, the first things you want to think about is just taking a break on your cold and raw foods. If it's a real struggle to let go of your smoothie, then just see if you can moderate it and take out any ice, take out any frozen things that you might be putting in there, and maybe chase it with a cup of hot water, or put a little powdered ginger in there just to try and warm it up slightly. And then the other things that you're eating, just see if they can be cooked. So if you are a big fan of salads, maybe it's that you roast a lot of root vegetables and then toss that in with some spinach and you make a salad, but it's a warm salad. Maybe you make a soup, maybe you make a stew, and then just have a little check in and see how things change in terms of your bowel movements.